So people have been saying, hey, David, have you been on a jury? Is it this insane? I was on a jury on the day of my 21st birthday, and I'm glad to talk about it and tell you how it was insane, actually. I want to say thanks to Bill Hubris for the Twitch Prime subscription. Also, welcome and thanks to Hack Fooey, who is a new Twitch Prime subscriber. And I really can't tell you how much I appreciate that. It's a lot. Okay, so here's my jury duty trial, and it was absolutely horrible. It really damaged my impression of the justice system that we have, because when they say a jury of your peers, most people, I hope this isn't offensive, most people are incompetent. Most people are not particularly smart. It doesn't mean they're bad people. They're just busy with their lives or whatever, okay? The trial I was in, I was on jury duty on my 21st birthday. Everybody was telling me, David, sir, you're not going to be picked. They don't want young people. They don't want college students. Say you're in college, they're not going to want you. I said, I hope that's the case. So it's an assault trial. And the facts that we are given are essentially that person A has been charged with assault of person B. Person B, the incident took place at person B's house, and person A went to person B's house. There was an altercation, and person A ended up shoving and punching person B. And we were to decide whether they were guilty of assault. Pretty straightforward. They go through jury selection. I happened to be one of the first 6. It was a 6-person jury, and just nobody said anything. I was like, oh my God, any second they're going to be like, get this kid out of here, get him off. Nobody said anything. I happened to be in the first 6. No real questions were asked other than these questions like, do you know any of the people here, whatever. The one person that was struck from the jury was a police officer who knew the police officer who would be testifying in the case. But otherwise, the first 6 of the first 7 were selected and 2 alternates. Okay. So trial starts rather. There's a few witnesses. There's person B, who's the guy that was punched, right? This is the victim in the case. He testifies. A police officer, who is the police officer that showed up, testifies. There's testimony about the layout, almost like a floor plan of the house where this took place, which is relevant in a moment. There's not really that many facts. I mean, I think that it was probably like a 90-minute trial, and then they send us to deliberate. Now, the crux of the defense was that this was self-defense. The defense's argument was my client, Guy A, the gentleman charged, did punch and shove Guy B, but it was self-defense. Now, at the time, this was in Massachusetts. In Massachusetts, self-defense has a specific legal meaning. It's not self-defense. You can't just say self-defense. It has to be demonstrated to be self-defense. And one of the important aspects of the way that the self-defense statute was read to us at the time was that for it to be valid self-defense, Guy A needed to have no way to just walk away, right? There was no way to avoid the confrontation altogether. In other words, there's a sort of, colloquially speaking, duty to retreat. You can't just choose if someone says, hey, you're a bitch. You can't just go and punch him in the face and say that's self-defense. You have to actually, be afraid, and you must have no other option. And the reason that the floor plan of the house was relevant was that based on the floor plan and everyone's descriptions of where people were standing, Guy A had a front door right behind him. So the question sort of was, is it self-defense if you can just walk out the door, right? Is it self-defense if Guy B comes up and intimidates me and hurls abuse at me or whatever? If I can just walk out the back door and leave, is it still self-defense if I punch the guy? Now, my understanding based on the law was this is guilty of assault. It's not been demonstrated that a punch was an equal force, a use of equal force, because no one's alleging that guy B punched guy A, was intimidating, was getting up in his face, okay. But based on, was it equal force? No. Guy A threw a punch, guy B did not. And for a valid self-defense claim, there must be no simple way to just walk away. Everybody admits the guy was standing in front of the front door, could have turned around, walked away. So I'm thinking that's guilty. It's guilty. It's very clear. I assume everybody is going to be on the same page. We go into the jury room and take sort of like an initial poll to see where people are at. And 4 of the 6 people are saying not guilty. I'm saying guilty. One other guy is saying guilty. Everybody else is saying not guilty. Of the 4 people saying not guilty, 2 had no idea what was going on. You could have told them we're in Thailand right now. They would have been like, oh, okay. They just had no, they weren't able to articulate really any reason why they thought anything. And I was like, oh God, this is already a bad start. But then there were 2 guys who were saying not guilty, who were saying, dude, it's self-defense. It's self-defense. It's self-defense. And myself and the one other guy were saying, whatever your colloquial understanding of self-defense is, we have to go by the instructions from the judge about the requirements for self-defense. One of the self-defense requirements is you have a duty to retreat and there's no simple way to exit. Nobody's contesting that the guy A is standing with a door behind him and could just walk away. There was no crazy aggression from guy B. It was an argument and they kind of got up in each other's faces. So by the definition of self-defense, this couldn't have been self-defense. Therefore, it's guilty. And these 2 guys just go, kind of, country guys, whatever, tough guys, go, no, if somebody came up to you in a bar and did that, you'd punch them and they would be self-defense, man. Like, what do you do with that? They refuse to even engage with the statute as written. They're going by their opinion from colloquial life about what is self-defense. So I think everybody was shocked at how long it was taking to deliberate. The defense attorney, the prosecutor, the judge. And at a certain point, we're essentially deadlocked on a stupid case on my 21st birthday. So we all go back in. We have questions for the judge. And we're almost like at a mistrial. It's crazy. We're almost like as a hung jury. And we go in and there's a request for the self-defense statute to be read again. And you can tell that nobody's expecting this to take so long. The judge is sort of like, okay, I'll read the self-defense statute again. And the prosecutor and the defense attorney, they're all kind of like, what is happening in that room where it's been 2-3 hours and now they're coming for clarifications? Nobody's expecting this to be going on. So we go back into the jury room. And again, me and this one other guy, we say, it's guilty. It does not meet the requirements of self-defense. It's guilty. The 2 people who were just sort of like not guilty but clueless really didn't. They just stuck with not guilty. And then these 2 dudes insist. They're like, no, man, that's self-defense. That's self-defense. You got to stick up for yourself, man. Stuff like this. What ended up happening? Eventually, we got into a discussion about, do we even know that the guy A threw a punch? So this was like, whoa, wait, what's going on here? The discussion went further to where they started saying, these 2 guys started saying, there's really no, other than the victim claiming he got punched, we don't really have evidence that a punch was even thrown because the police officer didn't observe the punch. The police officer showed up after the fact. Guy A didn't testify at all. So we have one assertion that a punch was even thrown, and it's that of the victim. Maybe there was no punch thrown. So at that point, we go back to the judge, and as a jury, we ask the judge, are we to decide the verdict on the basis that the assertion of the punch is true? In other words, was a punch being thrown a part of the facts of the case? Or are we to evaluate whether we even believe that a punch was thrown? And the judge said, it's up to us to determine whether a punch was even thrown. In other words, there was an assertion made by the victim, I got punched. It's up to us to determine whether that's even credible. So at that point, we go back to the jury room. And at that point, even me and this other guy who were like, this is guilty because we can't prove it's self-defense, we all were like, listen, guys, we've been here 6 hours. If we first have to somehow determine whether a punch was even thrown, it's just not guilty. There's now doubt. There's now enough doubt. We don't really have any corroborating witness. We have nothing. Okay. And so then it ended up being not guilty, and we all got the hell out of there. But it was crazy. I mean, it was such a simple case that when you start hearing people here saying, I believe this and I believe in the Second Amendment and all these different things, it's like, I just have no trust in the system at all. No trust. That experience just, it's just hard to believe. It's truly hard to believe that's what it is. But it is. It's the system we have, and some people would say it's the best possible system or whatever the case may be.